Hey, welcome back. Today we are doing another video about the Canon R5c, but more specifically, we're going to be talking about why you might want to use RF lenses over EF lenses when you are using the R5c. Before we get into that, if you haven't been to my channel before, my name is Brandon Charles. I do semi-professional photo and video work as a side job. As my full job, I do work with kids with autism. But I've been into photography for almost 20 years, so I have a lot of experience. And, the reason I started this YouTube channel was to connect with the photography and video community. And so far, it's been really awesome. I appreciate your support. If you guys want to support the channel in any way, just giving this video a like if you like the content is a big help. So but yeah, I appreciate you guys, and let's get into the video. So I actually have a pretty long list of videos I want to make for the Canon R5c because there's a lot to talk about. And one of the first topics that I want to talk about is why you might want to use RF lenses with the Canon R5c. And actually a subscriber that commented on my last video about the auto iris functions that were available when you were using RF lenses kind of gave me the idea, so thank you for that. Like I said, I really appreciate being able to reach out to you guys, and I think this is just a great place to learn from each other. So that being said, I wanted to make a video of all of the advantages that you would get from using an RF lens over an EF lens with the Canon R5c. In the past, I actually made a video on why you might want to use RF lenses over EF lenses with the Canon R5 or it was the R6, I can't remember. I've had pretty much all of the Canon mirrorless cameras except for the R3. So if you haven't seen that and you're curious, definitely take a look at that video. This video definitely builds upon that, but this is more specifically tailored to the Canon R5c, which has a different operating system when you are in the video mode, which is the Canon Cinema OS. I actually haven't seen this topic on YouTube yet, so I thought it would be helpful for you guys. So the more apparent benefits for the RF lenses are things like increased image quality, so increased resolution and sharpness, not only in the center of the lens, but also out to the corners. The RF mount also allows Canon to develop pretty unique lenses like the 28-70 f2 lens. So they're able to develop these larger aperture lenses for certain focal lengths that wouldn't be possible with the EF mount. And then depending on their particular focus for a lens, they could also make that RF lens smaller than the counterpart EF lens. For example, the RF 70-200 f2.8 and f4 lenses are a lot smaller than their EF counterpart lenses. A big thing that really sets the RF mount apart from the EF mount is the connection system. So it has a 12-pin connector as opposed to an 8-pin connector. What this does is it helps increase the speed and volume of data transmission between the lens and the camera body and vice versa. So what does this lead to? It leads to things like faster autofocus. So, with the RF 85mm 1.2, the autofocus is outstanding considering how much glass is in that lens. While that lens does have the USM autofocus technology, that RF mount connection system allows the lens to communicate with the body in a really quick manner. So you're going to be able to get shots with that 85 1.2, that RF 85 1.2 that you were not able to get with the older EF 85 1.2. Another big one is real-time digital lens optimization. So while the RF lenses are amazing, you still run into things like vignetting, a little bit of chromatic aberration depending on the lens, and distortion. And with these things, that RF mount is going to allow your lens and body to communicate so quickly that you can correct things when you're in video, things like vignetting, the aberrations, and then for the RF lenses specifically, you can even correct distortion. So That's a huge one, especially if you're using the RF 15 to 35 millimeter f2.8 lens, because wide open at 15 millimeters, that lens does show a good amount of distortion and vignetting. So being able to have that real-time correction of certain characteristics like that, that you might not want in your video is pretty amazing and almost makes your lens feel completely brand new. And the cool thing on the photography side is that turning on these corrections for your lens doesn't slow down your camera at all. So you're not going to hit a buffer faster, and you are still going to be able to get those high frame rates. Another RF lens specific advantage for the R5C is that you can turn on object distance information. So for certain videographers that like to know how far away a certain object is from their camera, you will be able to get that information. I'm assuming that'll probably be helpful if you have someone that's doing focus pulling, but again, if I'm wrong about that, let me know. Okay, so moving on to the next subject, the image stabilization. So most of you might already know how awesome it is to have an RF lens paired with a body like the R6 or the R5 with the in-body image stabilization. And a lot of people are upset that the R5C took that away. On Canon's end, I could see why they would want to take that away, just given the issues of how the IBIS works in conjunction with the lenses. Especially with wider lenses, you really get these weird wobbling sort of effects. If I was Canon, I'd probably definitely want to get that sorted out before adding that to a professional cinema camera, which is what they're advertising the R5C as. But what you do get in this camera is the same 5-axis electronic image stabilization system that you get in cameras like the C500 Mark II, the C300 Mark III, and the C70. So specifically with RF lenses with the optical image stabilization, you're going to be able to get enhanced image stabilization when pairing that with the electronic IS in the R5C. Now this is only when you're shooting in XFAVC or MP4, so it's not going to work for your RAW modes. But simply put, if you're using an RF lens with IS paired with the electronics image stabilization on the camera, it's going to do better than if you were using an EF lens with IS paired with the R5C. I would love to do a separate video on image stabilization for the R5C paired with the RF lenses and how that appears to look when you're doing handheld footage. So like I said, definitely subscribe if you are interested. Okay, so moving on, well, like I mentioned earlier in the video, with the auto iris, you can set, if you're using an RF lens, you can set that to fully automatic so that the camera will control everything, and you don't have to worry about holding in a button for the auto iris to kick in. So that's a nice feature to have for sure. Another thing I really like about some of these RF lenses is that they use the nano USM technology, which is newer, relatively newer to Canon. And when they can use that autofocus system, it gives you a really, really elegant and quick autofocus. It's really quiet, really fast, great for video, especially if you have a shotgun mic right above your camera, which will pick up on some of that noise if you're not using the nano USM technology. So lenses like the RF 15 to 35, the 24 to 70 f2.8, and the 70 to 200 all use this nano USM autofocus system. All right, next up, the slow and fast motion settings. When you are using slow and fast mode, it is important to know that you're going to need RF lenses if you want autofocus in that mode. So with EF lenses, you're not going to have access to one-shot autofocus, continuous autofocus, face autofocus, or tracking. If you don't know about the tracking feature, definitely look it up. I'm going to do a separate video about autofocus settings on the Canon R5C, but that's something that Canon doesn't really make apparent that it's available in the R5C, but there is a way to track objects. And then one more thing it's really nice to have with the R5C, especially since in video mode you can't use that control wheel to, a lot of people like to set their shutter speed to that control wheel, especially people that are like on the move and doing more kind of a run and gun style. The control ring on the RF lens is really nice to have. So you can customize that in a variety of different ways. So if you did want to set shutter speed to that or something like white balance, that's a really handy control option to have on your lens. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. I did try to make this video pretty comprehensive, but if you guys have any additional information on benefits with the RF lenses and the Canon R5c, then definitely let me know in the comments section below. Don't forget, I'm doing a lens giveaway at 2,500 subscribers. So if you guys are interested, subscribe, and I will be putting out a video on how you could win the Makey 50mm 1.7 RF lens. I'll see you guys in the next video.